We're going to call to order this special city council meeting of the city of Crescent City, February 20th, 2018. We've come back out of closed session. Let's go ahead and call a roll, please.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Greeno?
Here.
Councilmember Short?
Here.
Councilmember Fallman?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Keim? Here. And Mayor Inscore.
I'm here. Would you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have any items to report out of closed session?
No actions to report this evening.
All right. We're going to open up our public comment period. Any member of the audience is invited to address the City Council on any matter that is within the jurisdiction of the City of Crescent City. Comments of public interest or on matters appearing on the agenda are accepted. Note, however, the Council is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include being placed on a future agenda. All comments need to be made to the entire Council, and anything that is not at the microphone will be considered out of order and not part of the public record. After receiving recognition from myself, if you would please state your name and city or county residency for the record, and limit your comment to 3 minutes. And there will be additional time on each agendized item. Do we have any general public comment this evening? Yes, Mr. Knapp.
Good evening. Just here a few minutes ago, it seems like. So, Eli Naffa, and I do live in the county, and but I used to work for the city. And I brought this concern to the county about Charter Spectrum, and I know Blake, when I was talking to the owner of Northwest Broadcast, he says, I was just talking to your mayor. So anyway, the reason I'm here is it's 3 weeks now without NBC, CBS, and a couple other channels. And of course, we've had the Super Bowl without Charter, and now we're suffering through the Olympics without Charter. So I did contact Charter repeatedly. I've tried to get a hold of the CEO of Charter. I got to his secretary, but that's as close as I got. So somehow we need to apply a little bit more pressure between the city and the county on Charter Spectrum, and also if we could contact, I don't know who the person is or people are in the state, because we're all paying this franchise fee, which appears on our bill, $6.79 every month. Therefore, I feel that because of that franchise fee, that the city and the county owe a special responsibility to all of the people who get Charter Spectrum service. So you're our only voice here, and hopefully you can get whoever's doing it from the state to realize that, I mean, beyond the annual contract and everything else, we have a real issue, not receiving those channels. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and I'm hoping between the city and the county we can apply some pressure and get this done. The second thing, I addressed this to the county, and I also went to the harbor just a little bit ago, and their meeting started at 5:30, so this was my third Pledge of Allegiance in about 2.5 hours. So anyway, the offshore oil drilling, it was great seeing the headline of the Triplicate about a couple weeks ago saying that the UROCs opposed the offshore oil drilling. But I thought it's really important that we also go on the record and work with whoever we need to, but from the Department of Interior to, maybe some state people that can help us out. It's important that, we preserve our coastline. I addressed the harbor because of the fishing end of it. It's important after what happened with Santa Barbara and the Exxon Valdez up in Alaska and what happened to the Gulf of Mexico. We can't afford to have our fishing industry devastated by some oil spill. And then secondly, tourism is really important for this area. And I used to work for the city of Huntington Beach for about 5 years, And I looked at pictures in the past where there were all these oil derricks, and it looked so different when I worked there, recently, without all those oil derricks. It was really a nice scenic coast, and that really is important for our tourism. And also the fact that there's a glut of oil in the marketplace these days. So it's not like it's a national emergency that they have to go ahead and start drilling oil there. So we need to send the message, and they've exempted Florida. So I know, the fact that Trump has, his house there in Florida, but beyond that, just because our state went more for Clinton doesn't mean that we should end up suffering because of that. So hopefully you guys can get on the record, opposing the offshore oil drilling. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Egon. Appreciate it. All right. Any other general public comment this evening? You can. If you want 6 minutes, you can talk now and then talk again, but we'll give you plenty of time when we come to it. All right, thank you. All right, seeing no other public comment, we'll close public comment and we'll move on. We have no reports and presentations tonight. We have 3 items on the consent calendar: the regular council meeting minutes, the warrant claims list for January 27th through February 9th, and the payroll report of February 3rd through February 9th. Have any public comment on our consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for action.
Move to approve consent.
I have a motion to approve the consent. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
I have a second. Would you please poll the vote?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Greeno?
Yes.
Councilmember Short?
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Keim?
Yes.
And Mayor Inscore.
Yes, very good. We do not have any ceremonial items, but we do have a public hearing to address, and that is from the Community Development Director regarding the resolution for certifying special assessments and delinquent administrative violations. Mr. Taylor.
Good evening. I'm told if it is too warm, we can turn the heat down for you too, if you like.
I'm very sorry. I don't know what to say about this heat thing.
So tonight, the public hearing is, again, as you've already mentioned, to talk about assessing administrative penalties on 2 subject properties located in the city. These are both ongoing code enforcement cases. Unfortunately, both of these have been ongoing for about a year now, one of them actually over a year. So I just have some pictures of the property just to look at the condition of the property. The condition has not changed on either one of these 2 properties, but I do want to make it clear the only thing that we are discussing tonight is the resolution before you. The only topic here is whether or not to assess the administrative penalties, place them as a special assessment against the 2 properties. We are not here to discuss whether or not there is actually code violations on the properties. There are other processes for that. So the first property at 176 West 3rd Street. Location, here's a view of the outside of the property. I believe we originally sent the first notice back in January of 2017. Notice and order on this property. I just go through, as you can see, the pictures were taken back in January of 2017. The property has pretty much remained unchanged. Some pictures of the interior condition. One of the biggest issues with this property is the garbage, animal waste, leaky roof. As you can imagine, it's not improving over time. These are just some pictures when we first went in. Pictures of the kitchen, just various pictures throughout the house. This property house has a substandard roof. There's some substandard wiring in this location. Again, leaking of the roof. Again, rotted garbage throughout the home. To my knowledge, none of this has been abated to this date. There's a picture of the restroom. You can see all the dust collected on the toilet there, which makes you wonder how it was being utilized. Again, you can see holes in the exterior of the property. Again, It's not been protected against vermin and other issues that are going on there. This is a picture underneath the property where the previous homeowner, I think, was allowing people to live under there. I was by there recently. It looks like they had boarded it up, but somebody's since kicked it in. They're still occupying. So there's transient activity and other activities continue on this property to this date. So there's a picture of the notice of the hearing tonight. Per the municipal code and state law, we are required to notify owners within 15 days of the public hearing. We do this by posting the property, and we also do it by sending it certified and regular mail, which, as you see, those are all attached to the staff report for the subject location. The administrative penalties for this property are currently, the base citations were $20,000, $20,400. Any penalties that aren't paid after past 30 days, it automatically rolls over to a 50% penalty. So that's why you see the penalty attached in the amount of $10,200 for a total of $30,600 to date on this property. The next property is 346th Street. We've been dealing with this. I believe the first notice went out in March of 2017. This property is in very substandard condition. And again, we haven't had a lot of movement, or no movement at all, on actually any type of abatement. See, there's severe dry rot damage on this property. There are actually holes going from the exterior all the way to the interior. Again, there's another picture of the exterior of the property. Structural members rotting. Again, you can see that's the back of the property, and you can see the holes in the walls leading to the back bedroom. The biggest issue with this property, we had a lot of transient drug activity. As you can see, this was a mattress that was set up in the garage. The living conditions became so substandard in the residence that they were actually living in the garage. And as you can see, there is a drug syringe there, so we had some other issues going on. Of course, as you can imagine, how it impacts the neighboring properties. And again, this is not even a block away from Peterson Park. So, I mean, you actually see the park. It's just right across the street. Again, here's some pictures of the interior of the property. You note the wood stove is actually missing the stove pipe in there. Oops. Again, same issues with rotting garbage and debris through the house. Again, leaky ceilings. As you can see, the mold damage, of course, throughout the house as well. Again, picture of the kitchen. Just general pictures. I believe this was in the living room. Again, just piles of garbage. The bathroom, I'll leave it to your imagination why there are actually buckets in the bathroom. The toilet is not operable anymore. I spare you the picture of the toilet. It was one of the worst I've seen, actually. Again, more drug syringes that were found in the bedroom. And all the human excrement and everything are still remaining in that property, have not been abated. This is just a recent picture that I took, February 1st. As you can see, the property is in unchanged condition. The vegetation and the leaves are continuing to pile up. Probably about 5 cats came running out of there when I went up to the property. Again, we posted the notice and order. We conducted the same mailing and notification as we were required to do. And here's an accounting on both properties. Again, the base citations were up to $18,900. Again, with the penalties of $9,450 for a total of $28,350 on that subject property. That is my report. That is my cost accounting to the council. So before the council tonight is whether or not to adopt the resolution. What we're asking in the resolution that the administrative penalties be placed as a special assessment on the properties, which would then be due and payable as property taxes are. And as you know, both of these cases are moving forward through Superior Court as well. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Taylor?
So these fees would be paid just along with their property taxes? They wouldn't get like a little form that says, here is your fee and how much you owe?
Right, so if
Okay.
the city council approves the resolution, then we are required by law to send another notice stating that these will be assessed against the property. So basically, if they go unpaid, it's about a 3-year period. So if they go unpaid for the next 3 years, then they can be collected. The property can be sold and they can be collected. Thank you. Basically in the same manner as property taxes.
Anything else?
All right, well, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead and open up public comment, and then we can bring it back to the council.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I appreciate the opportunity right there to be here. My name is Michael Carruth, an attorney with the Kleindertz Law Firm. I'm actually a resident of Sacramento County. So I am here to speak specifically on this issue of the resolution, which would be 2018-06, to certify the special assessment for collection of delinquent administrative citations. Specifically, I represent the lender that is involved in the first property, the 176 West 3rd Street. And what I'm not here to do is question the fines themselves. You and I both looked at these photos. The house was in pretty rough shape. I'm not going to dispute that. What I understand is that the specific individual who is residing in this house passed away in about January of 2017. And then, again, it's my understanding there is no probate, so there's nobody who's come in and tried to take over this property. So the property still resides in his name. It is still his property at this particular time, or property of his estate, I guess. I'm here because, for this purpose of this resolution, the city is basically looking to take these unpaid fines, these citations that have been against these properties and whatever other properties you may have, and roll them into a special assessment. And my client specifically is the lender here, CB3A. We're technically also a defendant in a civil suit where a receiver is sought to be appointed. We strenuously object to the city's proposed action of trying to roll these fines into a special assessment because there's no authority within the government code to do this. The government code specifically allows a municipality to collect its costs, its administrative costs, by either lien or special assessment. Specifically, you can look at Government Code Section 38773.1 as well as 38773.5, and both refer to administrative costs. Nowhere in the Government Code will you find, at least that I'm aware of, will you find a specific section that authorizes a municipality to take its fines, the citations it is landed onto a property, and roll them into a special assessment or lien in some way. The city isn't left without a remedy. You have obviously legal counsel, and that legal counsel can file a lawsuit. That lawsuit can proceed through the Superior Court. You can take a judgment against the property, and from that point in time, you can slap basically a lien in that form, but that lien is still subject to the first in time, first in right rules, meaning the issue of priority still applies. But with respect to the city attempting to take its fines and these fees in which it is seeking to get for lack of code maintenance, whatever it may be, there is no specific authority within the government code that would allow the city to do that, that would allow any municipality to do that. And for that reason, we object. I see I'm out of time, but I have a written objection I'd love to distribute as well, and I can provide one to the city attorney.
You can give it to the clerk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And go ahead and feel
If
free
you have
to
any
go ahead and
questions, I
finish.
can even
Yeah.
give you a specific update on this property if you'd like. The 176 West 3rd Street.
Sure, go ahead.
On this particular property, as I understand it, Mr. Dalton Harrington, he passed away in January of 2017. And unfortunately, there was no probate, which means no one was there to come in and to try to take over this property, no family members, nothing. And obviously, a year has passed now. So at this point in time, my understanding is within the next 2 to 3 days, there will be a foreclosure sale date set. And at that point, the property will either be sold to a third party. Third party would purportedly come, clean it up, because obviously that's why they would buy the property. If the property is not sold to if there's no bidders at the foreclosure sale, the property would revert back to the bank, and the bank would do the same thing, because my client is not in the interest of owning properties. They want to move them, meaning they would come in at that point and try to remediate, to fix whatever problems and make it marketable. I mean, I don't disagree with you. The property looked to be in rough shape. There's no dispute as to that. My point is that I don't believe that the city is permitted to take these fines and try to roll them into a special assessment. You have a remedy. That remedy is available to you through the court. If you have administrative costs, those costs are different from fines. What you're seeking to do are not costs. They are specifically, they're just fines. But here, there is already an end game in place to get this property moving, to obviously try to get rid of this blight on your community, because that's what we want to do. We don't, no one wants this. We don't disagree with you on that point. So, are there any questions or anything I can answer specifically as to this matter?
Council have any questions?
Okay.
I would, go ahead.
I just, I'm reading the government code section here, and it seems like the whole code is put in place to enable a municipality to pursue a nuisance abatement lien. I'm kind of questioning your position that
Okay.
our-
My question
the
is
administrative costs and
Okay.
this, our mechanism of trying to abate this property is not what's being addressed by a government code.
well, let me ask you this then. What are the city's administrative costs? You're not seeking to get your costs back. You're seeking to get your fines, and those are not costs. There is I don't have it obviously in front of me, but we can find, if you'd like, the specific delineation between the two, because there is a distinction. Costs, for example, let's say you were to appoint a receiver. I understand that a receiver, there's an action that's already been filed in the court. I don't believe it's really all that far yet, but your city attorney can speak to that. Hypothetically speaking, if your city attorney were to go into successfully have a receiver appointed, that receiver could then go and get his specific monies that he expends at the end of the process, meaning when the property is sold, and at the same time, the city could make an argument that it could get its costs at that point. But the fines are separate and apart from that. There's a distinction between the two. So that while the government code allows the city to get its administrative costs, those fines that you've assessed against this property and this property owner are not those administrative costs. That's my point. I don't disagree that the city allows, or the government code allows you to go and get your administrative costs through either a special assessment or through basically putting a lien on the property. That's specifically what the government code says. But what you're seeking to do with these fines, those aren't administrative costs. And that's the distinction, unfortunately, here. And it's one that I know we would challenge in court, and I'm sure anybody else who is subject to the same kind of treatment would probably challenge in court as well, because I don't believe there's any authority within the government code to support what you are purporting to do here. So, any other questions? Sorry, it's a very long-winded answer to a short question.
I don't have any questions. I'm not an attorney, so I can't answer a lot of these questions, objections, or defending it one way or the other. I will just make an observation, however, if CB3A was really interested in being a good partner with our community of cleaning up blight, they could have addressed this very proactively when they realized there was no probate, and instead of allowing this property to be like this for a year. And they did not. And so to come back now when we're moving through a process, and again, I can't speak to the legality of the process, but I do understand why we're trying to take the actions that we are, and that is that this property clearly is a blighted property. Not only is it a blighted property, it is in one of the most highlighted portions of our community that people drive by, hundreds of people drive by, especially during the tourist season. And there has been no movement on behalf of the lender to truly address this until we file this. And so from my standpoint, not as a lawyer,
No,
not
I
trying to
understand, I
say,
understand.
but as an observer who tries to work in the best interest of our community, it's hard to feel like CB3A is coming and trying to help us now.
No,
That's simply my
yeah,
observation.
No, I appreciate your comment, because, I mean, you make a good point, but I guess all I can say is the probate period basically goes from the date of death for 1 year, meaning it just expired less than 30 days ago. So anybody up till February 17th, 2018, or January 17th, 2018, could have shown up. And I don't think that that my client, during the probate period, could have gone in and started moving on this property until they essentially had to wait until that full year. And since that date, I know that they've gone in, at least they've started to remedy the problems. They've boarded up the property, and they've made an attempt. I don't disagree with you. I mean, it isn't, it's not a beautiful sight. But the probate period literally just expired less than 30 days ago, and then the process has begun since then. And while at this very moment there is no sale date, I believe there will be one set by the end of this week. And, you know, then the property would be auctioned off. Obviously, you know the process on the steps, and at that point, you know, the process begins to clean up the property and to make it workable,
Sure.
make it habitable.
Okay.
So,
Alrighty.
any other questions or comments, anything else that I could answer? So, I appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you. We appreciate it.
At what point is this actually voted on, I guess, this particular resolution?
Here in the next few minutes.
Yeah, right after council weighs in, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Okay.
Council, you want to weigh in on this, since obviously
So
it's not hard to know more than I do anyway, but that's,
the section of the municipal code that we're operating under is Chapter 1.24, which governs our administrative citation program. Section 1.24.150 governs lien and special assessment procedures, which then incorporates the processes set forth in Government Code 387731 and 387735. I believe this section of the code, the administrative citations, was adopted around 8 to 10 years ago. So I have not, you know, it's not as though I wrote this yesterday, but I think that I wouldn't say that the lenders had no remedies until now, and I think that the city's proceeding within its authority and according to the municipal code, it is written today.
is there any conflict between Government Code 3877.3.5 and the Municipal Code Section 124, 150?
Is there a conflict?
I mean, obviously, these
No.
are two separate documents that govern how we operate, but just given what we were just shared with, is there something that we have within the municipal code that does not jive with the government code that we need to be aware of?
Not that I'm aware of right now. I could definitely look into it. Like I said, this was adopted 10 years ago. But what I would request is that you adopt the resolution tonight. And if there was a need to rescind that for some reason because our municipal code is not compliant, then we could do that. These special assessments would not actually be placed on the tax rolls until after July 1st. Because that's whenever the county does their new, their taxes for the next fiscal year. But, you know, instead of doing a complete, instead of continuing this and having to renotice it multiple times, if you'd like us to take a look at that, which is probably a good idea considering what has been presented to us, I think we have a duty to do that. I would adopt it, and we could bring it back if there is an issue. I wouldn't assume there's an issue because it was adopted in the first place and enacted, but
Mr. Taylor, do you have anything else you want to add?
Probably not a whole lot, but we are entitled to levy administrative penalties on properties. I think it's pretty clear, and I can just know from other court cases that we've gone to, we've been able to collect all those administrative fines, not just our administrative costs, but the fines and penalties as well.
Okay. The difference being in those cases usually is because they went to court versus this process that we're doing here. I'm guessing. I don't know if that, sorry, I should have said something before you sat down. I
Keep me warm,
apologize.
getting up and down. I don't think there's any difference. We'd go through the same process, as far as levying those penalties, but we're just entitled to them through the court process as well.
Okay. Anybody else?
Ms. Rice, knowing full well that there's an immense amount of staff time wrapped up into this, and calculating administrative costs would be tedious. I don't know if it's well understood by everybody, but I'm sure Mr. Taylor didn't suddenly find a ugly looking house on one of our streets and take 3 or 4 pictures and then say, oh, hey, there's a citation attached to this. We all are well informed enough to know that that isn't the way it happens. So I'm wondering if there's concern on the part of Ms. Rice about the, in my opinion, of what is just semantics between calling this a citation or actually attaching the name of administrative costs to it. Is that something that is concerning to you, or?
No, I wouldn't say that exactly. I mean, there's definitely been many hours that have of staff time, legal and Eric Taylor, sort of boots on the ground time, put into this already, and that does help recoup some of those. But I think one of the reasons that as staff, we would like to get something on the record as to the fact that these outstanding administrative penalties are out there. We tried to work with specifically CB3A subsidiary LLC to get some resolution to the matter, and they basically kind of thumbed their nose at us and said they weren't going to pay them. So in order for the city to protect its interest at this point, moving ahead, doing something like this and giving all future property owners notice that these are outstanding and they are going to be connected to the property, is the reason for bringing this to you at this point. But like I said, if I would like to have these assessed, and I would also like to be given the opportunity to confirm that our process is appropriate, because if it's not, then that is an issue, but it is something that has been in place for many years and we've used multiple times, so I would be surprised if that was the case.
Okay. Was there any other public comment from the? Sure. Come up here, though, because we record everything. We won't be able to hear you otherwise. Thank you.
No, I don't think we specifically thumbed our nose at anyone. We don't own the property. The property is owned by the estate of Daniel or Dalton Harrington. And so asking us to go back and to pay up this $30,000 when we don't own the property seems a bit backwards. You have a remedy. The remedy is you go and you sue the estate at this point in time. You take a judgment against the estate, which is a way that the city could go and collect its fines. Like, fines are distinct from administrative costs. And so to say that the city, well, we've got plenty of hours and that should make up, that's separate and apart. We're talking apples and oranges here. You could sue the estate, which I believe is a lawsuit has been filed, and take a judgment against the estate, and then when the property is sold, you can try to collect that way. You can take a lien on the property after you obtain a judgment, because no one's going to respond when there's no one on the other side. But to make an accusation that we haven't paid this fine, we don't own the property. So it just seems a bit unwarranted to start making comments against us. We're trying our best to try to work through this and come up with a way that benefits the community. I absolutely don't disagree with that. You guys have a beautiful community here, and we want to see we can get this done, and by just selling the property is the best step that we can do to get that, because you're either going to have it in the hands of a third party who's going to come in and rehabilitate it, or it falls back to our client, and then we have to come in and we'll rehabilitate it because we need to make it marketable to sell. And that is ultimately what we're trying to do. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to close public comment, then I'm going to bring it back to the council. You've heard public comment, and you have also heard from our staff and from our legal counsel. And I certainly would agree with legal counsel that it is advisable always for us to go back and take a second look at our processes and make sure that what we're doing is we're doing it the way we should be doing it. Obviously, things change over time. I don't know that certainly doesn't seem to me that it prohibits us from moving forward at this time with the knowing that we can go back and correct if necessary. But that's a decision that this council needs to make tonight. Or to continue it to a further discussion if that's your desire. So,
I agree with you. I agree with council that we shouldn't put this off and go and do the notice process again. We've certainly brought things back to the table in the past and certainly able to do it again in this case. So with that being said, I move that we approve resolution 2018-06, a resolution of the City Council of Crescent City certifying the amounts of lien special assessments sought to be collected from property owners for unpaid administrative fines.
all right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
I have a motion and I have a second. Would you please pull the vote?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Greeno?
Yes.
Councilmember Short?
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Keim?
Yes.
And Mayor Inscore.
Yes, and that passes 5-0. Thank you. We will move on into our agenda then with continuing business, which is a updated Crescent City Sewer Management Plan. Mr. Weir, Mr. Romsberg, who's got the delightful job of talking sewer tonight?
Thank you, Mayor Anscore. Yes, I'd like to invite our utility manager, Tom Romsberg. He has worked on this plan as well as freshwater environmental consulting. And so with that, I'd like Tom to take over.
Mayor and council, I always get the best subjects.
You do, you do.
So I don't have any pictures to show you.
Thank you.
And it would be really hard to follow that last set. So basically, what you have in front of you is a resolution to basically adopt the sewer system management plan, which was created in 2012. And this is a plan, and I guess maybe the way to think about it is the wastewater plant has a big permit called the NPDES permit. But the whole system that feeds it, which is the sewer system and collection, is under a general state, and it's called the WDR. I could probably do this all in acronyms, but waste discharge requirement, and that specifies all the requirements. And that's what this plan is about. It's a plan we're required to have in compliance with that program to demonstrate how we maintain and monitor and manage this part of the system. So what's different in this is not really anything different than what we've been doing. We went through an internal audit and an external audit over the last couple of years, several of them, and so we've looked at our plan and we've streamlined some things. We've cleaned it up, made it more efficient, and in some regards I've looked at it in terms of removing overcommitments and trying to simplify and put in the plan what we do and get it down to the really basics. So that's what the plan is all about. And we really, what's the goal of the plan? Well, the goal of the plan is that you maintain and operate all this equipment in compliance, and so it lasts, it has longevity. It drives some of the other things the city's been doing. I think you're all aware of a lot of the projects that Eric spearheaded with B Street, 2nd Street, replacing old parts of the system, trying to reduce the inflow and infiltration of the system. Then we have programs that we periodically go out to restaurants and look at the fats, oils, and grease and kind of control what goes in the system. And it's all about maintaining the health of the system. I guess the important point on it is, the administrative, kind of the clout behind it is the state requirement, but also our ordinances. And so we have a variety of ordinances that support the requirements and give us the authority to to implement the components of this program. So that's kind of what it's about. That's really short, and I don't have any pictures to show you, but I'm certainly will answer any questions you have on it.
All right, thank you. Tom, do we have any questions?
I have a question about the audit, the 2016 audit. First, I'd like to say that it seems like our new plan, the 2018 plan, big step forward from the results of the audit. I'm really just concerned about all the no's that are listed in it. Is there any consequences to the city for, first off, is there a way to not pass the audit?
Are you talking about internal or external audit?
The biennial sewer system management audit plan developed by Bay Area Clean Water Agency.
That's really, no, I would think. I mean, we, basically with the audit, the purpose of the audit is it looks at our plan and it's a living document and it makes suggestions what we do. We'll keep amending this plan over and over. I think that's really the whole general spirit of it is keep going back and then upgrading the plan as time goes on.
Okay. Anybody else? No? All right. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. It's good to, it's always good to keep ahead of the game. Obviously, we have worked very hard. I know you have, staff in general has, trying to really develop a really strong working relationship with the state. And I think that being able to produce a plan like this that really addresses what our needs are and what we're doing proactively to address the concerns can only help us continue to build that relationship. So kudos to you, to Mr. Weir, to others who have.
Well, the whole organization,
Yeah.
thank you, because we're trying to mesh up with what the requirement is and what we need to do anyways and make it consistent so we have a functional system. We all, resources are thin, so we got to do the right things at the right time and make sure everything's lined up. And that's a struggle, but we're getting a lot better at it, so thank you.
Well, I just think that a lot of credit goes to yourself, to Mr. Weir, and to the other staff who've done this, because I know that while you guys have talked to the state for years over some of the things, you also realize that we've had some times where that relationship hasn't been as good as it probably should have been, and we've really turned that around. And having been in my role, been on some of those conversations and hearing the different conversations of the state coming to work with us, I just think that you and the staff really should be.
Well, and I think this is part of it in all these different programs and being proactive and working with them, and because you'll get the best result and it becomes more of a partnership rather than adversarial. So
Yeah,
it seems to work.
good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Anybody else? All right. So we have a resolution that's attached to the SSMP, Resolution 2018-07. Do we have any public comment regarding this resolution? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council then for action. I have a motion to approve 2018-07, resolution of the City Council of Crescent City adopting the updated sewer system management plan. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All right, would you please poll the vote?
Yes, Councilmember Greeno.
Yes.
Councilmember Short.
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Keim. Yes. And Mayor Enscore.
Yes, very good. Under new business, professional services agreement for fire-related plan check services. Mr. Weir.
Thank you, Mayor Enscore, members of the council. Let's see, I don't know, it's just old habit, I guess, to address council from the podium, so here I am. Yeah, we'll see if we can fit into that role eventually. So what's before you tonight is the professional service agreement for fire-related plan check services. This has been a gap that we have been experiencing as a city with Mr. Wakefield's recent events and his absence from his position. So Mr. Wakefield did a tremendous amount for this community. The fire department in general is in good shape, thanks in large part to the people that are dedicated, the volunteers, the battalion chiefs, the captains, the assistant chiefs. They've done a absolutely tremendous job stepping up and really keeping this community safe. There's the administrative side, which we're finding that we have some challenges still. And the challenges are such things like business licenses and plan checks and different things like that. And that's where Mr. Laidlaw, who works for the consultant company that this agreement is in related to, works for. Mr. Laidlaw is a fire professional. He was a fire captain, I believe, for the city of Arcata. And now he has a consulting business in which he does plan checks and fire-related prevention type services. So this is a general contract with Mr. Laidlaw. It would be a time and material, so kind of just a retainer, so to speak, for his services. So as we need those services, if we get plans that come in and that are more routine, those can be handled by our building official. But the large commercial-related fire type plans that we need to have checked for fire life prevention would go to him for his services. The contract is time and material, as I mentioned, and it's going to be for $50 an hour, which I think is extremely reasonable. One caveat on our standard consultant agreement, which we proposed to Mr. Laidlaw. After he reviewed it, I received word today that the insurance requirements, which are for more larger consulting firms, are a little much for him and his firm. So he can't comply with our current insurance requirements. So as that is a fact, I'd like the council to, if you do make a motion for this, to make the motion contingent upon him being able to comply with revised insurance requirements. I spoke with our city council, and the exact motion would be with revised insurance as approved by the city attorney, is what we'd like the motion to be on the first one. There are two action items on this particular event. The second one would be approving a resolution for the budget adjustment. As of to date, our plan check revenue that the building department has brought in is above what we anticipated it being. It's approximately $3,000 above at this point. So we'd like you to approve the resolution, which would increase the revenue side of it due to that fact that we have already brought in more money, and then increase the expense side to accommodate this contract. Questions?
Any questions? No?
Nope.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward. Okay, we have any public comment regarding this professional services agreement? Okay, seeing none, then we'll bring it back to the council for consideration of Resolution 2018-08 with the updated language that Mr. Weir addressed.
Do we want to do the resolution first or approve the service agreement?
We need to do
It's
the
a
resolution and
two-part.
then the agreement? Is that right, Ms. Rice?
It doesn't matter technically which one you do first.
Probably need to do the agreement first and then the budget.
Do the agreement and with the updated language and then do the resolution?
That would be fine.
Okay,
I'll move we approve the professional services agreement with Ed Laidlaw, Felcon, for fire life safety inspections, prevention, and code compliance services.
okay. Would you note the updated language regarding the insurance to be confirmed by our
Oh,
attorney?
yes, I'm sorry, and that's with the amendment regarding insurance as approved by our city attorney.
Thank you. Is that fine with your second?
That's fine.
All right. All right, would you please pull the vote?
Yes. Councilmember Greeno?
Yes.
Councilmember Short?
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Keim?
Yes.
And Mayor Inscore.
Yes. All right, now we can take Resolution 2018-08 and put this into our budget.
Move to approve.
Okay, have a motion to approve 2018-08. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
All right. I have both seconds. All right. Please pull the vote.
Councilmember Greeno?
Yes.
Councilmember Short?
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Keim?
Yes.
And Mayor Inscore.
Yes.
If I could personally thank the council for that. We do have the talent on the fire department now to do plan checks, but with some large projects coming up in the city, having a professional like this, it can be done quicker
Yeah.
and with not so, and it would not being so taxing on the volunteers also. So I think this is a very worthwhile thing that we'll be doing.
Okay. Thank you. Legislative matters.
Recently, I got an email about, I don't have to go and find the email again, about offshore drilling and the legislature's opposition to offshore drilling. I'd like to discuss that at the next council meeting.
Okay, well, feel free to forward that through to staff, and staff can disseminate some of that information out to us, and if there's an action item that we can look at for, from an advocacy standpoint, we can take a look at that at our next meeting.
Good.
Thank you. In response to Mr. Naffa's public comment regarding Charter Spectrum, I know that I spoke with the president of Northwest Communications, and I think that all of you received a letter from him that he had sent to me. I do believe that maybe we need to look for ways to weigh in on this from an advocacy standpoint, and if we have consensus, to direct staff to do some further research on that. If we need to send a letter, I did communicate with Senator McGuire's office as well to express our concern. I mean, this, as Mr. Naffa pointed out, this $6 and change franchise fee, if Charter Spectrum is to have to pay that all back to the $450,000, to the 450,000 people who were affected by this, just 1 month alone, that's $2.7 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. You start factoring that out, now we're 3 weeks into it, that's a month's worth. If it continues on, I think that we need to weigh in some fashion on behalf of our constituents. So is there consensus for the staff to do a little research on this for us to put together possibly a letter for me to sign?
Yes, no, that sounds good. We've talked about it at the staff level as well and started to do some research so we can bring it back to the council with some options.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else from that standpoint? Okay.
Should we weigh in on one side or the other? It seems like from the email that we got, it's, at least from that side of the argument, it seemed like Spectrum was not kind of, how should I say, bargaining in good faith, I guess. So is there a direction that we would like staff to, are we weighing in to Spectrum, Charter Spectrum, or are we weighing toward the broadcaster? It seems like with what we were seeing in the email is that we should need to kind of lean on Charter for not really
I think
bargaining
that
the way they should.
I think that's something staff ought to come back to us with from an independent vantage point to say, well, this is the research that we found, and what you were given. One side certainly reached out to us, reached out to me to say, we want to tell you our side. The other side has not seemed to have shown the same interest in trying to tell their side of the story. I will say that Northwest Communications shared with me, their president shared with me, we offered the same deal that we had just signed with Comcast. So it's not like we were really out of the ballpark with trying to establish a contract. But I would certainly, I think that staff needs to come back with some independent perspectives and give us some guidance on maybe how we can be good advocates for our community.
Sure. And our franchise agreement is with Charter, so that is who we have the contract with, so that would be our avenue, I would think.
Yeah.
Mayor Inscore, just for the matter of clarification for the minutes, for Councilmember Fallman's item, is it going to be placed on the next agenda with the council's consensus, or is the staff going to research if there's an action item for it to be on the next agenda?
I think staff needs to weigh in on that, and then we can look at it at agenda review. I guess it may not be something we can do at our very next meeting, but I think if that's all right with Mr. Fallman, that staff has an
Oh, yeah, I
opportunity
understand staff
to take a
has
look at it first.
a lot more going on than looking into this. So, yeah, if this
But
is...
we'll try to bring it back I
Okay.
think there's consensus that we want to bring it back as soon as staff has an opportunity to give us some guidance on direction.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. Okay, Mr. Weir, you have anything that you want to specifically address this evening. Again, I very much appreciate your weekly reports. I know that you put a great deal of thought into those, but there may be some things that for the good of the public that you might want to share with us all tonight.
Yes, and I felt the, desire to stand at the podium for this one. This one's kind of a personal one. I attended the fire department meeting right before this meeting, as a matter of fact, and I know that Councilmember Short is also very personally related to this one, being on the fire department. There was an announcement to the department by the Wakefield family of Chief Wakefield's resignation, and so that was officially announced to the department tonight. Just Mr. Wakefield himself, what he brought to this community, I don't think can truly be comprehended by the community. It was just something that we took for granted. Here's a gentleman that was on the fire department for well over 40 years, probably 42 years, something to that effect. He was chief since 1995, so well over 20 years fire chief. He responded to calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He dedicated his entire life to this community and to helping others. His leadership was phenomenal. From just a volunteer fireman's standpoint, what he brought to every individual, what he instilled in all of us as a department, as a community, will live on forever. He truly was a catalyst for change. He saw the bigger picture. He saw the need to bring the city department and the district fire protection district together because it was the best thing for the community. Even though we had deep-rooted history in both departments, he got this group of individuals to come together. His leadership is undeniable, and for that, I just want to thank him, thank his family. But I wanted to give that announcement to the council officially. Councilmember Short, I know as a fire battalion chief, I don't know if you have any words on this or not, but.
I'll just, can't thank Steve enough. I look at him and his whole family and see some community members that are quite remarkable. People think about being successful, and he has achieved that in every sense. There's being financially successful, and it's just overall successful in life, and I guess you could say that Steve has accomplished that, and Deb being there by his side as fire mom. We know her as fire mom. She's been a great supporter of Steve and his three sons. Their three sons are three great men also. So having Steve around and having him as fire chief has been something pretty remarkable. And like you said, Eric, people didn't realize, he's Steve around all this time, running calls 24/7. That's really saying something. You don't see that from the other fire chiefs. They're paid or volunteer, and that's a pretty remarkable thing to say that he's been doing that for quite a while. So yes, we definitely want to thank Steve. And on that note, like for maybe the city council to consider some form of recognition of his accomplishments, whether it be a letter or a plaque or something along those lines, or both.
Sorry.
But yes, if we would consider something in some, a plaque and a letter is really a paltry form of a thank you for Steve, but I think we do need to make some sort of effort to do that.
It would be an honor to put something like that together and bring it back to the council. Steve Steve's place in the fire department, this was talked about at the meeting tonight, will always be there. And so as he is going through what he's going through now in recovery mode, it was a strong sentiment is when he's ready to come back, we will have a place for Steve Wakefield
Yes,
as a legacy member of the department in whatever capacity he can. So.
Okay, thank you. All right. Council, you have reporting out that you would like to do. Mr. Green, how about we start with you?
All I have was, we had a Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority meeting today, right before this meeting, and we discussed several issues. We got our floor over at the transfer station repaired, as well as our weigh station. And they completed that project in record time, just a couple of days. That was an awesome project, and thankful that's done. We also weighed in on the financial woes that CalPERS is going through. So we have some challenging times to look forward to, unfortunately, as a solid waste management authority and as a city, as a state, should I say.
Yeah.
So it's a little sobering.
Okay.
So that's all I have to report.
Councilmember Short.
Ordinarily, we would have had a Del Norte Transportation Commission meeting in this time frame, but there was a lack of agenda items, so it was canceled. So I have nothing to report.
Okay. Mr. Fallman.
I'm same boat as Councilmember Short. Would have had a meeting, but it was canceled due to lack of items.
I know. All right. Pro Tem Kime. Did you have anything to do last week?
I'm not sure. Yes, I did. I was with you all week.
You were.
I was with you all week. We just got back Saturday from Japan. It was wonderful. It was amazing. It was a very different feel than a year ago. The progress they've made is amazing. And from now until the third week of April, we'll be very, very busy welcoming our Japanese delegation here. So that's all. That's all.
That's all?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Well, I had a busy week before going to Japan. Had a Cal-LAFCO Financial Ad Hoc Committee meeting. We're trying to look at how to find another entity that doesn't know how to come up with enough money to pay for itself, which I think we're all in. Also took part in interviewing for our next executive director for the Chamber of Commerce, and proud to announce that we have hired Sarah Carone to be our executive director. Attended a movie debrief with the Netflix producers and location managers, and got some feedback on how we can continue to be a potential destination for future ventures such as that. I was very impressed with what they had to say. I will say they were very impressed with our community and working with our staffs, both city, county, and state. I mean, it was all positive. There were a couple of hiccups along the way, but nothing that we didn't navigate through. And so I know that Cassandra Hasseltine from the Hasseltine, I was right the first time, from the Film Commission was pleased with their take, and I think it will help in recruiting other people to come up here to work. And I know that it provided 3 weeks of wonderful entertainment for our HR manager, who kept us update on the Sandra Bullock watch via Facebook, which was, I found very entertaining. Sorry, Sonny. I thought it was hilarious. It was great. And I think that thousands of people in Del Norte County live vicariously through your Facebook posts. And so, but it was a pretty neat experience to have Hollywood come to Del Norte County, and for them to truly say, we really appreciate the way you treated us. And I think that speaks well of our community as a whole. We had a visitor bureau meeting. We're moving forward with a contract with a company called Vertigo, which we're establishing a contract to do tourism marketing services here for our community. I did participate in a conference call with the USDA on behalf of Tri-Agency. We're still not quite there yet when it comes to dealing with the outstanding USDA debt with Tri-Agency, but we're continuing to work through with that, and so you got to keep taking the calls and you got to keep working together. Also attended the night before we left the Planning Commission. I appreciate Mr. Taylor and the Planning Commission as they continue to work together to make progress towards our cannabis ordinance, and I look forward to the discussions coming back here to this council as we weigh in on what our vision is for our community. And given the somewhat contentious nature of this discussion in our community, I guess without trying to throw stones, I do appreciate our staff, our Planning Commission, and this council's willingness to continue to talk and work together for the good of our community, and hope that we continue on that path. I will agree with Pro Tem Keim. The overall feel in Rikus and Takata a year later is significantly different. Many things that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis, like being able to go to the grocery store, it's amazing how once the grocery store opens back up again, it just changes how the community looks at itself. We think about it from the standpoint of all the griping and complaining we did when 2 grocery stores here closed, and how inconvenient it was going to be, and this and that and all the other things. The flip side of that is when does the grocery store finally reopen? You actually have a grocery store, which is exactly what they began to experience. And it's pretty phenomenal to see what that means to a community that has lost so much. I'm not going to take a bunch of time tonight to try to convince this council or our community about the value of this relationship. If you follow me on Facebook, you'll know that I was not only in the paper this morning, but I was also a little bit incorrect in my interview with Tony Reed yesterday about what I said about Crescent Elk and the height of the water there. Sometimes when you're passionate about something, you get a little ahead of yourself, not because you want to scare people or because you want to be a doomsday person, but because you just care so much about a community that you don't want anybody to have to lose their life. The community and the public officials, the government from the top down, believed in Rikus and Takata that they were as prepared as you could be, and almost 2,000 people lost their life. I am not going to sit here in this chair and not do everything I can do to prepare this community. When you sit and listen to the retired fire chief talk about what it was like to be a first-line responder in the midst of a tragedy like that, you have to stop and you have to listen and you have to ask yourself, are we really prepared? I know we have documents that say we are, so did they, but they were not. And as best as I can, and I will just say so that it's publicly heard right here, we need to start putting some public money into this relationship because of the value beyond the cultural exchange for our students and for our community. We need to learn from these people because they know things that we do not. I've stood in their operations center, which is where their dispatch is and where they monitor everything 24 hours a day. I looked at where their placement of all their speakers are throughout their community, where they can give an immediate verbal announcement to the community about what's happening right now in the real time. Again, I've taken longer than I really probably wanted to, but we have to put this out in front of our community. We're going to have to put some money to it. We're going to have to ask community partners to help us fund it. And if that's not popular and people say, well, you ought to be spending money cleaning up your community, not parading off to Japan, trust me, there was no parades in Japan. So That's sort of a sobering way to end a meeting, but this is real. And until you've been there and see the devastation and see what this community is trying to do, you can't appreciate for what it really means for us, for our future. And especially for us in this 1.6 square miles that we call Crescent City. Because the 1.6 square miles that we call Crescent City that we represent, that's what's gone in a similar event. It's gone. And I think we just have to deal with that. And we need to deal with it positively. And I hope that our community comes out when Mayor Toba and the delegation comes in April. I hope you're here. I hope you want to listen to his story. I hope that the fire chief will come and talk to us about what it was like to be boots on the ground. I hope this community comes out in force and says, show us how we can protect our community. Tell us what you learned. And so I look forward to, along with Pro Tem Keim and others who have been part of this, helping to plan a trip that will not only be great for the delegates from Rikus and Takata, but in fact may be life-changing for our community. So, anyway, sorry. I meant to just simply say we had a good week in Japan. I'd love to tell you more about it, but it's really hard not to.
It's hard not to.
It really is.
hard not to.
So, okay, well, if we have nothing left, Mr. Weir, you have something else?
Yes, just one more thing. And first, thank you for informing the public about that. I don't think we quite fully grasp, nor can we, the type of devastation that you guys witnessed over there. Although this community is just as susceptible as what they are.
Yeah.
And, you know, in fact, in 1700, we had just the opposite event. They received the distant event, and we received the nearshore event, which can absolutely do what you're saying. And we can't prevent it, but we can plan for it. And the most important thing we can do is just inform the people so they know what they need to do. So
Yeah.
I appreciate those thoughts. Also wanted to talk to the council about the meeting that we're planning at this point for a joint meeting between the city council and the fire protection district. So when we adjourn this meeting, we'd actually adjourn it to the February 28th meeting at the joint meeting, special meeting.
At the Washington
At
Fire
Washington
Hall.
Station.
At 5:30.
At 5:30.
Okay, so we will adjourn until the next special meeting on February 28th at 5:30 at the Washington Street Fire Hall. Thank you. We're adjourned. Sorry.
It warmed up.